Sharnagajjar, Assistant Professor at IT Department of LJ Institute of Engineering and Technology. Welcome to the video lecture series of subject Software Project Management. In previous lecture, we have discussed about Unit 7, that is Software Reengineering, in which we have learned about what do you mean by software configuration management. Also, we have learned about what are the various software maintenance techniques, that is corrective, preventive, and so on. Okay, so we have learned about various maintenance types of software maintenance, right? So now in today's lecture, we are going to learn further about what are the maintenance activity, as well as we are going to discuss about what are the advantages, disadvantages, and about the benefits of topic software re-engineering. So let's start with the first topic of today's lecture, that is software maintenance process. So in previous lecture, we have already learned about what do you mean by software maintenance. Okay, so again, software maintenance means if you have done with your software development, then you have to maintain your software for the further years, okay, for the better compatibility for that particular product, right? So what are the process of maintenance? So in diagram you can see there are various phases are there. Okay, so starting from, you have to identification and tracing of that particular software. So what is that particular definition and what you have to maintain? So you have to identify what you have to maintain. Then you have to analyze the problem. Okay, so whatever the problem in your software, you have to analyze them. Okay, then after you have to coordinate with the design team for the better design purpose. Then based on the design, you have to implement a new feature. Then again, if you have done with implementation, and then you have to perform system testing, then acceptance testing, and at last you are delivering a better version of your software to the customer. Okay, and at last it will goes to the maintenance management. Okay, so this is all about the maintenance activities. Okay, so let's understand each and every activity in detail. So first activity is identification and tracing. But before that, we have already know about what do you mean by software maintenance. But here IEEE standards, they have provided a framework for sequential maintenance process activity. Okay, so if you have to maintain any software, you need to follow some sequence, right? So IEEE framework have provided some sequential process activities. Okay, and it can be used in iterative manner. Okay, so whenever you require for any maintenance in software, then you need to follow this all activity process, right? So it can be used in an iterative manner and can be extended so that customized item and process can be included. So if you want to add anything in your software, then you can easily adapt that change by using these activities, right? So software maintenance life cycle. Similarly, it is as the software development life cycle, there is a software maintenance life cycle, that is SMLC. Okay, so it is implemented in a different phases. Like we have already discussed, first phase is identification and tracing. That means this particular phase involves activity pertaining to identification of requirement of modification or maintenance. Okay, so that means what kind of modification or maintenance you require in that particular software, that is the identification of any activity, right? So it is generated by a user or system may itself report via logs or error message. Okay, so that particular change will be generated by any user or system itself generate any new activity. Okay, for an example, when WhatsApp was developed, they just have a chatting facility, right? But as per the market need, they have recognized there is a video call facility should be adopted, then there is a status facility should be adopted. Okay, so many of that activity are user generated and many of the activities are system generated, right? So this is the first activity, that is identification and tracing, so that what kind of maintenance or what kind of modification you require in your software, that is the first phase. Okay, so here the maintenance type is also classified, that means corrective, preventive. Okay, so we have already learned about 4 types of software maintenance. So you have to also describe about any of the time. Then the second phase is about analysis. Now you have a definition, like you have to modify this change in your software. So now you have to analyze. So the modification is analyzed for its impact on the system. It includes safety and security application. That means if you are apply any changes, then what kind of impact in that particular existing system will be reflected. Okay, so many times it can be possible, like if you adopt any changes, then all the database connectivity and all these things will be trouble. Okay, so if you are applying any changes, then you should aware about all the risk in your software. Okay, so the modification is analyzed for its impact on the system, including its safety and security implications. Okay, and if probable impact is several, alternative solution is looked for. Okay, so if any risk is occur, so you need to change your modification process. Okay, so you need to analyze about more alternative solution for that particular modification. So there are a set of required modification is then materialized into requirement specification. Okay, so what kind of requirement you need and what kind of possible solution are there. Okay, so you have to analyze each and everything, and based on that you can also analyze about the cost of that particular software. So this is all about the analysis phase. Okay, now the next phase is about design. So you have already defined what you actually want to modify. Okay, then you have to also analyze what kind of changes you require and whether it is feasible or not. Now you have to implement it. Okay, so for implementation you have to design for that particular changes. Okay, so design means new modules which need to be replaced or modified. Okay, so if you are changing some GUI or if you are changing some module, okay, so that is which need to be replaced or modified, that you have to design. So that are designed against your requirement specification set in the previous stages. Okay, so in previous analysis stage you have defined multiple requirement specification, and based on that requirement specification you are designing for your new modification or new module that are modified. Okay, and test cases are created for validation and verification. So also you have to check for each and every verification and validation. So this is about the design phase, in which whatever you have mentioned in analysis phase, that are requirement specification, that are implemented in a design form, that is design phase. Now whatever you have designed, you have to implement them. So for that you have to do a coding. Okay, so you have to do a programming, right? So implementation is the next phase. So the new modules are coded with the help of structure design created in the design step. Okay, so if you have mentioned submit button, then you have to follow the submit code. Like if you have written multiple fields and then after clicking on the submit button, your data should be stored in a database. So what kind of operation perform in that particular button, that will be coding into the implementation phase. Okay, so every programmer is expected to do unit testing in parallel. Okay, so in our unit 6 we have already learned about various testing strategies, right? Unit testing, integration testing, alpha testing, beta testing, then stress testing, smoke testing. Okay, so we have already learned about various testing strategy. So here, while during implementation, each and every programmer are parallelly doing unit testing. That means they are checking for whether that particular module is working properly or not. That means each and every components are perfectly working or not. Okay, so this is all about implementation. Now the next phase is about system testing. Okay, so now you have already done with your coding phase. So now integration testing is done among newly created modules. So whatever you have developed at a new for the new purpose. Okay, so whatever modification you have done for that particular module, you are doing the testing. So integration testing is also carried out between new modules and the system. Okay, so finally the system is tested as a whole. So following regressive testing procedure. So it will follow regression testing for this as a system testing. Okay, so we have already learned about what do you mean by system testing, in which there are 4 types of testing is done. Okay, so once you are done with implementation and unit testing, then you can perform a system testing, in which you are performing a testing on a newly developed module as well as whole the system. Okay, so you are checking for new module also and whether that particular new module will be reflected in any other modules or not. Okay, so what kind of impact it have in a other modules? So you are checking for the whole system also. Okay, so this is the thing about the system testing. Now acceptance testing. Okay, so after testing the system internally, it is tested for the acceptance. So here users are testing for that particular module. So whether that module is acceptable or not, that will be tracked by the user. Okay, so here in this state, user complains some issues. Okay, so if any issues are occur, so he or she will complain about that issue, and in the next iteration it will be resolved. So here your system will be at the acceptance phase by the user. So if I have developed any software, then acceptance testing means at the client side they are accepting my software product. Okay, so this is about the acceptance testing phase. Now the next phase is about delivery. So once you have done with all the testing and all the remaining activities, now your software is going to be delivered to the client. Okay, so after acceptance testing, the system is deployed all over the organization, either by small update package or fresh installation of the system. Okay, so after acceptance stage, the system is deployed all over the organization, either by small update package or fresh installation. Okay, installation of the system. So the final testing takes place at the client and after the software is delivered. So customer is also checking at their own end. Okay, so at customer end you are checking for whether that particular updation is properly working or not. So training facilities is provided if it is required by the customer, and in addition a hard copy of the user manual is also given for the testing purpose. Okay, so your system is delivered to the customer. And the last phase is about maintenance management, in which configuration management is an essential part of system maintenance. Okay, so it is added with version control tools to control versions, semi version or patch management. Okay, so how many version you have already delivered, how many version next you are going to deliver, so those all the versions detail are maintained by using a maintenance management phase. Okay, so this is all about software maintenance process, in which first phase is identification and tracing. Then once you are identify some changes in the software, you are analyze for that particular definition or for the change. Then you are designing for that. Then you are performing implementation, in which parallelly you are doing unit testing. Then you are checking for system testing. Then you are checking for acceptance testing, and at last delivery and maintenance management activity will be taken place. Okay, so this is all about software maintenance process activity. Okay, now let's understand about what are the causes of software maintenance problem. Okay, so there are basically three causes: lack of traceability, lack of code commits, and absolute legacy system. So let's understand about what do you mean by lack of traceability. So codes are rarely traceable to the requirements and design specification. Okay, so once you are done with coding and design, so that particular code are rarely check for that particular specification. Like if I have done about the submit button code, so unit testing I have done parallelly while I am coding that particular thing. Okay, so here codes are rarely traceable to the requirement and design specification. It makes it very difficult for the programmer to detect and correct a critical defect affecting a customer operation. Okay, so like a detective, the programmer is over the programming looking for the clues. So where your fault is there. Okay, so you are checking for the fault in your program. So life cycle documents are not always produced even as a part of a development project. So it might be happen like if there are multiple text boxes are there, multiple edit text boxes are there, multiple buttons are there. So some of the code will be saved. So instead of performing a submit, it will clear all your content. Okay, so it might be difficult to track a code where it can be properly managed. Okay, so that is the lack of traceability. Then the second issue is lack of code commits. That means most of the software system codes lack adequate comment. So laser comments may not be helpful in certain situations. So for an example, if you are coding something, so you have to maintain some comments like for what purpose you are doing this code. Okay, so any person, if you are going to left this particular job, so other person can easily understand what you have coded for that particular module. Okay, so there are many times lack of code comments are there in a program, so that also cause a software maintenance problem because the other person cannot understand about the actual code. Okay, so most of the software system codes lack adequate comments, and lesser comments may not be helpful in a certain situation. So this is about the lack of code comment. And the last cause is about obsolete legacy system. Okay, so in most of the countries worldwide, the legacy system that provides the backbone of the nation's critical industries. So for an example, telecommunication, medical, transportation, utility services were not designed with maintenance in a mind. They just have developed the product. They are not thinking about what will be the maintenance of that particular product. So there will be absolute legacy system. So if you are developing any product, you keep in your mind about the maintenance also. Okay, so they were not expected to last for a quarter of a century or more. So as a consequence, the code supporting this system is devoid of traceability to the requirement, then compliance to design and programming standard, and often includes dead, extra and uncommentable codes, which all make the maintenance task next to impossible. So here many times telecommunication industries, medical industries, transportation, utility services, they are not checking for the maintenance. They are just providing a product and a services. So this is also cause of a software maintenance problem, because for the maintenance you should keep all the documents with you and you have a backup plan if this particular product will be failed. Okay, so this is all about the causes of software maintenance problem. Okay, so now let's move to the further topic, that is about software re-engineering. So we have already learned in our previous video about what do you mean by software re-engineering. So re-engineering, that means you are redeveloping your software. Okay, so in which we have learned about reverse engineering and a forward engineering. Okay, so what are the objective of that particular re-engineering? So if you are doing re-engineering, so objectives are that it will be used to describe a cost-effective option for the system evaluation. It will help to describe the activities involving the software maintenance process, and it will distinguish between software and data re-engineering and to explain the problem of data re-engineering. Okay, so this is the objective of re-engineering process. So in the re-engineering, you are redeveloping your software but with the existing features. Okay, so you are just doing reverse engineering, then you are doing some modification, and you are performing forward engineering, right? So this is all about the objectives of re-engineering. Now what are the re-engineering cost factors? Okay, so the quality of the software to be re-engineered, that will be the cost factors for any product. Then the tool support available for re-engineering, so what kind of tool you required for the re-engineering process. Then the extent of required data conversion, so what kind of data conversion you need for your particular software. Okay, so this is also about the cost factor. And the availability of expert staff for re-engineering. Okay, so what are the availability of any staff for the particular process of re-engineering. So this is all about the cost factor for re-engineering process, right? Now the next topic are about what are the advantages and disadvantages of re-engineering. So if you are doing re-engineering, then what are the advantages? So advantages are like it will reduce the risk. So obviously if we are doing re-engineering, so automatically it will reduce the risk. So as the software is already existing, the risk is less as compared to the new software, because you have already developed one software and that are in a use. Okay, so obviously it is a risk less software. Okay, so as the software is already existing, the risk is less as compared to the newly software development. So development problems, staffing problems, and specification problems are a lot of problems which may arise in a new software development. Okay, so if you are doing re-engineering, then you already have existing software, so it will reduce a risk. Then it will reduce a cost. So same, the cost of re-engineering is less than the cost of developing a new software, because obviously if you are doing or developing a new software, then it will cost you a high, like you have to start from the beginning, like login, registration, all database and all the remaining things. Okay, but if you are doing re-engineering, then your existing system is there, you are just adding one feature into that particular software, so it will reduce the cost. Then it will revelation of business rule. So as a system is re-engineered, business rule that are embedded in a system are rediscovered. Okay, so if anything is missed in a previous version, so you can easily map it with a current version. So it will revelation of business rules, and also better use of existing staff. So existing staff expertise can be maintained and extended, accommodate new skill during re-engineering process. Okay, because the same team have already developed the software and you are giving for the re-engineering process with the same team. Okay, so they have a expert knowledge about the particular features and function. Okay, so it is a better use of existing staff. So these are all about the advantages of re-engineering. So if you are doing re-engineering, then it will reduce your risk, reduce your cost, revelation of business rules, and better use of existing staff. Now it also has some disadvantages. So what are the disadvantages? So first disadvantages is practical limits to the extent of re-engineering. So it might be happen like sometimes re-engineering process is not that much helpful for each and every software product, so some practical implementation not be possible. Then major architecture changes or radio recognition of the system data management has to be done manually. So multiple times you have to do some manual work rather than a automatic work. So this is also disadvantages of re-engineering process, and re-engineering system is not likely to be maintainable as a new system developed using modern software re-engineering method, because you are doing with the existing system, you are modifying your existing system, you are not developing a new system. So it is not likely to be maintainable as a new system developed, because if you are changing something, then it might be happen like your risk will be arise, then it might be happen like your system will be crashed because of the new modification, that the new changes will not accommodate with the existing system. Okay, so there are multiple things that will not accommodate with the existing product, so it will cause some disadvantages of re-engineering. Okay, so this is all about the re-engineering disadvantage. So that's all for the today's lecture. In today's lecture we have learned about what do you mean by software maintenance process activities, in which we have learned about the different types of activity in software maintenance process. Okay, and also we have learned about what are the objectives of re-engineering, what are the advantages of re-engineering, and what are the disadvantages of re-engineering process. Okay, so that's all for the today's lecture. Thank you.